Hello, everyone. Welcome to EVTN News. Um, I'm sure most of you are kind of reacting to the news from yesterday of Cardinal Cupid shutting down the Institute. It's official on their website. They did confirm that the shrine, well, they won't be offering public masses. Go to my video yesterday and let me know your comments. A lot of people already have. Um, I'm going to move on from that. LifeSite News has a good article, check it out, and it just kind of details what happened. But yeah, I will move on from that, and I will probably revisit that at some point. But for now, we're going to go to Pope Francis authorizing wiretapping. That's right, the NSA of the Vatican. The Vatican authorized secret wiretaps on an Italian financial broker based in London who has been charged with defrauding the Holy See of hundreds of millions of dollars, according to leaked documents. Pope Francis granted investigators the power to bug phones, intercept emails, and arrest anyone without approval from British judges, the Times of London reported. The Vatican's Office of the Promoter of Justice used those powers to target millionaire Raphael Mincione, a fund manager accused of cheating the Vatican amidst a roughly $350 million real estate venture. In April 2021, the Pope amended Vatican law permitting religious leaders like cardinals and bishops to stand trial before the Vatican's civilian-led courts, the Telegraph reported. Days later, Pope Francis allegedly ordered the adoption of technological tools suitable for intercepting fixed and mobile devices as well as any other communication, including electronic ones, according to leaked documents. These powers may be exercised against subjects whose communication activities are considered useful for carrying out the investigations. So, what I see in this, the important part is Pope Francis is wiretapping people, and he could use it against his enemies. So, pretty interesting, huh? That's really what I got out of it. Anyway, there's massive financial fraud at the Vatican, wiretapping, whatever. Um, are you guys surprised? No. Okay, so before all this crazy stuff broke out, Father Mattia Bernasconi, a priest of the Archdiocese of Milan in Italy, publicly acknowledged that his liturgical choice to swap out his vestments for swim trunks was perhaps imprudent and said that he would not do it again. He said Mass on an inflatable air mattress in the water while wearing swimming trunks and no shirt. All right. The 36-year-old priest explained he had been helping with a week-long summer camp for high school students in southern Italy, organized by Libera, an anti-mafia organization. He said, "We wanted to spend the last day at the beach. It was Sunday, and there arose the issue of Mass, which we always celebrate. It was 10:30 in the morning, and the sun was scorching, so we decided to veer into the only comfortable place, in the water." Wow. So he's at a week-long summer camp, and he hasn't planned Mass on Sunday. And so he just goes in with his swimming trunks, no shirt, and pulls this inflatable raft and says Mass there. Pathetic. Really, that's, I mean, look, this is Novus Ordo theology. And what else is also Novus Ordo theology? Pope Francis visiting Canada. Yeah, I got a lot of comments on these, a lot of information on this. During the first full day of his visit with Canada's Indigenous communities, Pope Francis attended a healing dance that appeared to direct worship to Mother Earth. Wow, that's not the first time. Prior to the ritual, which took place in Alberta, the Master of Ceremonies for the event explained that a healing dance was about to occur while outlining that the drum involved is the heartbeat of Mother Earth. The drum is life. Gathered in a circle around a large tree branch, Indigenous people began chanting and playing the drum as people dressed in feathers and other traditional outfits started dancing. The MC for the event spoke about the importance of the number 4 as the ritual continued, referencing the elements, the 4 directions, the 4 stages of life, 4 living life forms. All right, it has a lot of paganism. Then later, on the 4th day of his apostolic pilgrimage to Canada, Pope Francis joined a pagan smudging ritual during his visit to Quebec. Again, this is your Francis Church. After brief instructions, Pope Francis, along with civil dignitaries, was greeted into the reception hall as an indigenous man chanted while beating a drum. According to the MC, a traditional Inuit lamp was lit. A number of high-ranking prelates were also in attendance, including the Archbishop of Toronto, Cardinal Collins, Archbishop of Quebec, and Primate of Canada, Gerald Lacroix, Cardinal Michael Zerny, S.J., Prefect of the Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development, Cardinal Mark Ouellette, Prefect of the Congregation for Bishops, Archbishop of Edmonton, Richard Smith, and Vatican Secretary of State Cardinal Parolin. As part of the planned welcoming ceremony, an elder of the Huron-Wendat Nation opened proceedings by initiating what is known as a ritual smudge to the 4 directions, using sweetgrass and animal feathers to waft smoke around the room. The ritual is intended as a ritual of purification, in which Mother Earth is prayed to as a kind of pantheistic deity. The elder explained he would light the sweetgrass and make a link to the 4 directions. Okay. After which he takes the sweetgrass to Pope Francis and a feather from a wild turkey, which is an element of survival for the Huron-Wendat Nation on the land. So the cardinals and the cardinals and bishops that I mentioned earlier, I believe the indigenous person told them to hold their hand over their heart, and which they all did in this pagan in a pagan ritual. So there we go. They all participated in a pagan ritual. So good job to them. Not really. We went Catholics, and apparently there were none in the room there. The elder explained. Anyway, the elder explained. Let's see here. Following the ritual, Pope Francis delivered a speech condemning ideological colonization, lamenting a past colonialist mentality in which he said disregarded the concrete life of people and imposed certain predetermined cultural modes. He said the Holy See and local Catholic communities are completely committed to promoting the indigenous cultures. Okay, listen to this. The local Catholic communities and the Holy See are concretely committed to promoting the indigenous cultures through the specific and appropriate forms of spiritual accompaniment that include attention to their cultural traditions, customs, languages, and educational processes in the spirit of the United Nations Declaration on the rights of indigenous peoples. Okay, the Holy See and the local Catholic communities are not Catholic. Sorry to say it. Now, guess what the indigenous people thought, how they reacted? They wanted money. They said, no, that's not enough. We want money. There you go. That's what you get. And I have a link down below to LifeSite News. Let's see here. Saint Jean de Brebeuf, one of the Canadian martyrs. I have, let's see here. In 1625, he volunteered to minister to the Aboriginal peoples living in Canada. And he was tortured. He did evangelize, though. He had boiling water poured on him in a mock baptism. They cut off his tongue, upper and lower lips. And if you want to read more about the tortures that he endured, eventually martyrdom, you can read that at LifeSite News in the link below. So, the Pope Francis goes there and apologizes for really amounts to news that's not news that may or may not be true. It's not news, it's just assumptions, lots of assumptions, and really just trying to attack the Catholic faith. And what was the result was that he's trying to promote fake religions. When the indigenous people should be the ones apologizing to the Catholics for their treatment of these missionaries, their horrible treatment and martyrdom of these missionaries. They should be apologizing to the Catholics. And if you had a Catholic Pope, he would go there and say that. It's not popular, the media would hate it. But what did the Catholic Church, how did the Catholic Church benefit out of this? They didn't, because it's going to give more money to these pagan communities. Whenever what would be the best thing a Catholic what would be the best thing a Catholic Pope could do? Give these guys a priest. Give them a Bible. Teach them the gospel. But no. We have to accommodate these fake pagan beliefs. Pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. We'll get to more. We'll get to the airplane interview in a little bit. That's probably what a lot of you tuned in for. So yeah, disaster. Now I don't know. Did he bring a curse onto the church? I don't know. It wasn't in Rome. It wasn't in St. Peter's Basilica, so that's a positive. I don't even know if any of these pagan rituals took place at a Catholic church. I hope not. I'm going to Ciro Malabar. The Ciro Malabars from India. Archbishop Anthony Carayil, a 72-year-old Archiepiscopal vicar of the Ciro Malabar Rite in India, stepped down on July 26th. The news followed several days. Now, this is an Eastern Rite. Ciro Malabar Rite is an Eastern Catholic rite. The news followed several days of media reports about rumors that he had been asked to resign by the Vatican's representative in India, the Apostolic Nuncio, over the refusal to adopt a uniform or unified liturgy. So this is actually a really interesting story. I hope you guys find it interesting as well. I've been following this sort of. I mean, not very closely, but it seems like there's a lot of anger. The modernists want the modernist liturgy, with mass or liturgy facing the people. And of course, as Catholics, we want the traditional practice, and even in the Eastern rites, we encourage traditionalism. There have been disputes over the priest's liturgical posture. Pope Francis shockingly favors the old tradition of the rite ad orientem. Wow. So, I mean, who knows? He's just a mixed bag. You know, you never know what you're going to get from him, but you can count on him whenever he's asked about any of the traditional Catholic faith, any of the traditions of the Catholic faith prior to the last 50 years. You're going to hear at least, he's going to say rigid at least 20 times. So that's disappointing. But very interestingly, the Vatican is pressuring the Ciro Malabar Rite to be traditional. It's very weird. They hate tradition in the Roman Rite, but in the Eastern Rite, I don't know. I guess it's not so bad to them. Very strange. Very strange modernists indeed. All right, we're back in the United States. The March for Catholics, scheduled to be held in Peoria, Illinois, on September 29th and 30th, is an event hosted by the group called Our Warpath. OUR, Our Warpath, and designed to take a stand against heresy and watered-down Catholicism. It is organized to promote orthodoxy and stand against the soft Catholicism, which blends in with the culture rather than transforming it as Christ commissioned the Church. Joe Regi, president of Our Warpath, said the diocese heard the event was being held and banned them from the parishes and the cathedral. Bishop Louis Tilka of Peoria, Illinois, refused to speak directly to the representatives of the Catholic podcast and website, Our Warpath, after denying access to the cathedral for prayer for participants in the March for Catholics. When asked if the bishop would provide a written statement regarding the exact nature of reason for denying Catholics the opportunity to pray in the cathedral, the bishop refused. So there you go. That's synodality. That's accompaniment. That's dialogue in the modern church. That's, I don't know. What does Francis say? Bishops need to embrace or follow the smell of the sheep or something like that. Well, I don't think they're practicing what they preach. But you can say the same thing for all the bishops banning the Latin Mass. Absolutely rotten. But in Kansas, 2 Kansas nuns are voicing opposition to a proposed abortion-related amendment in their state's constitution, despite its support by a local archbishop. The nuns argue the measure, if approved, would have negative repercussions for women and allow politicians to impose religious beliefs on all Kansans by passing restrictive abortion bans. In a letter obtained by Religion News Service and later published in the Kansas City Star, Sisters Angela Fitzpatrick and Michelle Morek, members of the Ursuline Sisters Order, otherwise known as bus nuns, explain their intention to vote against an amendment on Tuesday, August 2nd, that, if passed, would alter the state's constitution to remove the explicit right to an abortion. The letter, which the sisters sent to various publications in Kansas, doubles as a challenge to Archbishop Joseph Naumann of Kansas City, Kansas. Is an excommunication for these nuns in order? Yes. Well, is it needed? Yes. Will it happen? I don't know. Archbishop Naumann has spoken out in favor of pro-life many times, and so I would hope that he would take the merciful stance towards these nuns and excommunicate them, much like Archbishop Corleone did in San Francisco. But we don't know. We don't know because these bishops, I'm not confident. How many of them are going to stand up for the Mass? I'm not confident in any of them in the United States. Sadly. I don't have much confidence. Prove me wrong, please. I'd be happy to be proved wrong. In Ireland, Ireland's government is now moving to establish anti-prayer zones across the country where a person can be jailed for praying against abortion or encouraging people to give birth to their baby instead of killing it. So, things are going great in Ireland. Not really. Pretty sad. Alright, and finally, Pope Francis's airplane interview. You knew it was going to be a disaster the second you heard airplane interview. He railed against the traditionalists. Who cares? By that we're used to these we're used to these statements. Interestingly, he was asked about the German bishops, and guess what he said? No comment. Kind of like whenever they ask him about Vigano saying that he knew about McCarrick. I will say nothing. He said everything about everything that needs to be said about the Germans has already been said. And the traditionalists are the bad guys. Yeah, that's where we're at. But anyway, he was asked about the church changing its teaching about contraception. And here's, I mentioned this in the last video. It was a rumor. I talked about how the Pontifical Academy for Life was kind of hyping this stuff up, and there were rumors of a new encyclical that may reverse Humanae Vitae. Wouldn't that be interesting? He said, Pope Francis, he was asked about that. He said, this is very timely, but know that dogma morality is always a path of development, is always in a path of development, but development in the same direction. Who really knows what the same direction means? Pope Francis explained that St. Vincent of Lérins taught that true doctrine, in order to go forward, to develop, must not be quiet. That is, it consolidates with time, it expands and consolidates and becomes more steady, but is always progressing. That is why the duty of theologians is research, theological reflection. You cannot do theology with a no in front of it. Yeah, you can. The magisterium will be the one to say no. Well, I mean, in many things, the magisterium has definitively said no. He said, on the issue of contraception, I know there is a publication out there on this issue and other marriage issues. That's the Pontifical Academy for Life, what they shared. He said, these are the proceedings of a Congress, and in a Congress there are hypotheses. Then they discuss among themselves and make proposals. We have to be clear, those who made this Congress did their duty because they tried to move forward in doctrine, but in an ecclesial sense, not out, as I said, with the rule of St. Vincent of Lerins. I don't even understand what he's trying to say there. We have to be clear. They did their duty. So they basically opposed church teaching, which Pope Francis says is dogma. And he's saying, well, that's good. Well, there you go. So the Jesuit Pope is he actually going to change the church? Is he going to try to change, in quotes, the church teaching on Humanae Vitae, on contraception? That, quite honestly, a lot of bishops, apparently, whenever Humanae Vitae was released, a lot of bishops actually supported smaller family sizes. And now, what an even better excuse. The environment, save the environment, have less children. Have you heard that? That's kind of what happens whenever people lose the faith. Okay, let's see here. I was told 2 of my ancestors, Jesuit priests, were martyred by the Huron. I believe that's a Huron. How appropriate. He said the Heron. St. Isaac Jogues. How do you even pronounce that? I don't know how to pronounce his name. Don't dare say I'm against natives because I'm part Cree Indian. Well, there you go. You have that. Did you get your free college? Well, I guess that's not politically correct to say it. Okay, well, now that I said that, there was a have you seen the Babylon Bee? Babylon Bee is a satire website, and they posted an article with a picture of Pope Francis wearing the Indian headdress. Oh, I said another, what would you say? I said a forbidden word. But anyway, he was wearing this headdress, and the topic was, or the title was, Pope Francis to meet with Elizabeth Warren. Thought it was funny. I don't know. You guys go to the Babylon Bee if you want to laugh. It's not Catholic. I think it's a Protestant Christian who runs it, but it's pretty funny. Politics and stuff, if you like that. If you like not taking yourself too seriously, joking about that stuff, then look up the Babylon Bee. They got banned from Twitter for quite a while. And then once there were rumors about him buying Twitter, they came back, I think. I don't know. Anyway, this person says, if you like Francis, you must be nuts. Okay. Prophecy of St. Francis in the end times will send an uncanonically elected pope to destroy the church. Well, Rome will lose the faith and become the seat of the Antichrist. Isn't that from Our Lady of La Salette? Anyway, I don't know. Some of this stuff, this is crazy. And let's get back to Chicago. I said LifeSite has an article on it. It's official. I looked at the Institute's website. They closed their chapel. Someone from that parish on Twitter said that the Institute in Chicago, they would be doing things not necessarily within the public eye. And so what I assume that means is potentially like private masses, secret masses, maybe going right outside the diocese and having mass. So they have workarounds I don't like that they didn't stand up to Supich. She's a bully, and you have to resist. And yeah, I don't know. People say it could get the institute shut down. I don't know. I don't really agree with that because they're going to get shut down anyway. I mean, the bishops saw how easily they rolled over with this declaration. But I think that's the whole thing with these Ecclesia Dei communities. If they don't have their canonical status and their permission from the bishop, then they're no good. Like, it shows how powerless they are. And I don't want to, maybe that's the wrong word to use, but really they can't do anything without the permission of the diocesan bishop. And, if you really believe that Rome did lose the faith, as Our Lady of La Salette prophecy. Now, Our Lady of La Salette, I believe this was on a Taylor Marshall video, and Tim Gordon was on there, and they said there there was the apparition, and then there was the prophecies, and the prophecies can only be sourced back to one source as opposed to the two sources. Both sources reference the apparition and some of the basic ideas, I believe. So um, any of that, Rome will lose the faith and become the seat of the Antichrist. Sometimes you may have to take it with a grain of salt. Quite honestly, if we see what's going on today, I don't think we need prophecy. I don't think you need to know the third secret of Fatima to see that today we're in a very uh, bad place as Catholics. I mean, with the Pope just spouting off random nonsense, and uh, priests won't stand up for the faithful, bishops won't stand up for the faithful. Um, let's see here. Um, okay. 1 second. Okay. So, yeah, priests and bishops won't stand up for the faithful, and I think you need to. Let's see here. I'm removing some comments here. Sorry about that distraction. Okay, if you ever see anything in the live chat that's inappropriate, just report it. Anyway, is it a sin to call the FSSP Institute in Chicago cowards? That's a good discussion. I don't know. I don't know that I'd call them cowards. I mean, the thing is, they stood up to Supich. Okay, they stood up to him the first time. Whenever he cracked down on the Latin Mass, he said, "You have to say Mass on the first Sunday as a Novus Ordo. You can't say the Latin Mass on first Sundays." And the Institute was like, "No, no thanks." If they would have went along with that and not had a public Mass on first Sundays, would they have been all right? I think he still would have kicked him out. His arbitrary rules are rotten and ridiculous, and I'm quite honestly, like, if we had good bishops, they would have called him out for it. But they know he's powerful. They know he's part of the McCarrick network. And so they're not doing anything about it. And that's what I mean. If you have a diocesan priest um, who says the Latin Mass, will he stand up for the Latin Mass if it's canceled by the bishop? No, chances are not. If you have a diocesan priest who will stand up for the Latin Mass, let me know. I don't care. I mean, it doesn't matter to me what his name is. Just let me know. I'd be interested because I think very few of them are going to stand up. Kind of like the ones that stood up when we had this virus shutdown. How many of them stood up? None. The SSPX. So that's why I think it's that's kind of an awkward comment. Okay. The fact that Supich is, I can't really read that on air. Shows he's mentally deranged anyway. Well, okay. No, but I don't know if I'd call them cowards or not. I mean, they have their canonical status, and they kind of, what would you say? You chose your path. It's like this is kind of a weird topic. Have you ever read Goosebumps books? That was kind of the thing when I was a kid. That kind of shows my age, my era that I lived in. Goosebumps books. Maybe some of you will recognize that. But they had the Choose Your Own Adventure, and so it said, like, you would read to a certain page, and it said, if you want to go Like there's a road that goes to the left that looks really scary, and the road that goes to the right that looks even scarier. Which one do you take? And the institute chose the road that went to Rome, that communion with Rome, and they got their canonical status, and they have their constitutions. And if you get a rotten bishop like Cardinal Supich, he doesn't care about your constitutions. He cares about, what does he care about? LMNOP, um, cracking down on the mass, making sure the faithful, trying to make the faithful leave the faith. Is that what he cares about? No, very few ordinations. I heard that Chicago had 2 total ordinations this past spring, and one was for the Society of St. John Cantius. So that's not even for the diocese. That's for a religious order. So that's pretty pathetic. But I mean, quite honestly, who would want to be a priest under Supich? You know that if you were interested in the Catholic faith, and you'll get shut down. I mean, that's just kind of how it works in the Archdiocese of Chicago. Let's see here. So I don't think I'd call them cowards. I don't know. I mean, they made their decision, and that's where they went. Now, I think I am a little bit disappointed with the direction that they did choose, because they're going to probably try to do the underground mass thing. And we'll see. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work. They don't have faculties to hear confessions. I don't imagine if you called up the Institute in Chicago and said, hey, I'd like to make a confession, they'd probably say, well, we're not permitted to do that. But if you showed up at the door and asked for them to hear your confession, I would be willing to bet a lot of money that they would not decline. They would tell you they're not allowed to hear it, and you would say, well, I don't care. Then they'd probably hear your confession. I don't think that would be problematic. They can set up shop right outside of the diocese and hear confessions. I mean, they have parishes. Now, I guess the biggest thing here, though, and thank you everyone for joining the live stream, I guess the biggest thought that I have is the people that donated money to that shrine. They were given a church that was burnt down, and Supich redeemed. He cashed in on the insurance policy, then gave the church to the Institute. Now the Institute owns the building. So what faithful are going to donate money to that specific parish when they're not receiving the sacraments? Like, really think about it. And as for me, I don't attend an Institute parish. Would I've donated money to the Institute in the past, not a lot, and so I'm not going to call them and demand my money back, but how many people have donated lots and lots of money to them only to see this happen? You know? Exactly. The Institute should give the building to the SSPX. That's what I said that in the last video, or maybe one of my videos, and that wasn't mine. That's not an original thought for me. That's other people's idea as well. Give the building to the SSPX, or rent it out to them. That way the Institute can maintain their, they can maintain the building, pay for the insurance costs, and the other costs that it's going to take. I don't think they're moved into the church yet, but they never will they? I mean, if they're not going to, if people aren't going to fund something that's never going to happen, I don't know. I just think it's a bad position to put your organization in, where you're going to lose out on a lot of money. A lot of people aren't going to donate to you. Same goes for the FSSP. How long are they going to stay open? So for me, if I choose to donate money, it's going to be the SSPX. They're going to be the ones that preserve the Mass. And I see it coming. I mean, look, if Francis, depends on how long he's Pope. But I can see it coming where there will be a day where they will be excommunicated. Why don't they just all go to the SSPX? That's a good question. If the Institute called up the SSPX and said, hey, can we partner with you? There you go. You have a support system. You have bishops. You have an organized structure. and you have parishes, and you don't have to fight against each other. So, like, for example, in Pittsburgh, there's an Institute parish and there is an SSPX parish. They don't have to fight against each other. The Institute can leave and everyone can go to the SSPX, and those priests can go somewhere else and minister to the faithful where it's more needed. You don't need competing Latin Mass orders in the same town. Francis will probably be Pope until he gets struck by lightning. Especially before they are excommunicated. Yeah, I think they will be excommunicated, but I think all Catholics will be excommunicated. Here's an interesting thought. We're going deeper down into this road. I've heard people have said they think that, and this is not. There's no basis for this, but they speculate that there could be an invalid change to the consecration of the Novus Ordo. The valid consecration is the priest. What is it? Matter, intent, and form. So he has the host, and he said, "This is my body." He intends to consecrate it. There you go. That's a valid consecration. And then with the chalice, he has wine in the chalice, and he said, "This is my blood." He intends with the full intention of consecrating it. That's a valid consecration. If the Vatican does change, well, it would make sense, wouldn't it? If the Vatican does intend to change the consecration to an invalid consecration in the Novus Ordo rite, then they would kick out all the traditionalists, push them out. They would excommunicate them. Well, I don't know that they would excommunicate them right away. I think they would allow a lot of people to go there and then excommunicate them. So I don't know. I mean, we're going down that road. Who really knows? Who really, seriously though. I personally think the SSPX is the only place left where you can be totally confident of the validity of the sacraments. So I wouldn't say valid. I mean, I would personally say, like, the Novus Ordo sacraments are valid, but do you really want them? I don't know. I'd go with the old rite over everything else. Like, that's definitely my preference. And quite honestly, Eastern Rite is pretty similar to the old rite. They have their practices are a little bit different, but when I go to an Eastern Rite liturgy, it seems like that's the actions and the words are very similar to the Latin Mass. So that's what it is. Okay, well, anyway, this is I've been dragging this out a little bit, but thank you everyone for joining the live stream, and we'll have more. I'll have more videos coming up. I hope that there's not a lot of Latin Mass crackdowns. I think there might be. I think there might be more coming, and I've been doing a video on every single one, and it's not cool. I'm not excited. I hope not. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that I can get back to doing, like, book review videos. I haven't finished any books for a while. I'm into some longer ones, but ooh, oh no. Francis, I don't think that it says Francis just shut down the Eastern Rite in India. No, I think that's the Ciro Malabars that I was talking about. He's actually trying to make them more traditional, which is so weird. But anyway, the Eastern Rites could be next. I don't know. This seems like a long game plan for Francis, and I don't know how much longer he has. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, everyone. This has been EVTN News. We are the laity, and we will not be silent.